Welcome to the global discussion. Discussion was with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name's Simon Hodgkins, and it's a real pleasure to be joined today by Adriaan Bartels. Adriaan, you're very welcome to the podcast. Let's begin by asking you to introduce yourself, because you've got a fascinating role, a fascinating career, and I'd love you maybe to just expand on that a little bit for our worldwide audience. So over to you, Adriaan.
Sure. Thanks very much, Simon. I appreciate you asking me to be on the podcast. So hopefully it'll be of some interest. I am actually, I was born in East Africa in Kenya. I grew up there, and my family are from Holland originally, hence the sort of Dutch sounding name. But we lived in Africa for a long time, and also in West Africa for a while in Senegal. So I've been jumping around the continent a little bit. I came to Ireland to go to secondary school. It was considered a better education than in Kenya. So I was sent to boarding school in Ireland, and I decided to get into an industry where I could travel the world, because I really liked the fact that I was, I'd been seeing quite a lot of it. And I thought, if you're going to learn about an industry, a business, why not learn about one that is, there's a hotel in every country, every city, everywhere, all around the world. So if you learned it in Ireland, I could travel and continue my passion for travel. So I figured that was the best industry to get into. I had never been, none of my family have any hotel or restaurant background. So anyway, I jumped into it, and I did some years in college in Dublin, in Colbrew Street, which is a catering college in Dublin. Did 4 years there, and in between times then did some various stages and internships with, and I ended up kind of graduating to the 5-star luxury hotel market, country house hotel market, for want of a better explanation. So yeah, that's where I've kind of gone through my career and kept in that sort of league of hotels. And it just so happens that's how I've ended up in a luxury country house hotel in County Tipperary. So the chance of moving and traveling the world didn't really happen for me. I met a very lovely girl from Kerry, and we married, and that was it. I was kind of stuck in Ireland, which isn't a bad place to be stuck in, I have to say to you. It's a lovely country. Now we do get to travel, obviously, when we're on holidays and stuff, but in terms of my career, I did work in the UK, I did work in Scotland and Holland as well, but most of my career is in Ireland, as it happens, so hence the Irish accent as well.
Well, thank you, Adriaan, for giving us a little bit of context, a little bit of background, and from I suppose from Kenya to Ireland to, this dream of traveling the world. But you really are at the upper echelon, the very cream of the, I suppose, hotel and hospitality industry. You've been a general manager running these very exclusive, beautiful places since, I think we'd have to go back to mid-90s, maybe even before that. I'm not sure. But could you tell us maybe a little bit about what it takes to be a general manager in some of these operations, because it's quite a complex role, and maybe tell us a little bit about your current role, because you've been there now, I think, heading for about 5 years since we last sort of caught up. It's been a number of years since you and I discussed this, but tell us a little bit about your current role, the current beautiful, fantastic establishment that you're the general manager of today, and what goes into being a general manager of one of these organizations.
Yeah, indeed. I suppose, funnily enough, I've been involved in opening hotels most of my career. I was deputy manager in a place called Sheen Falls Lodge in Kenmare, and we opened the hotel in April 1991. And in September 1991, we had the Gulf War. So that kind of knocked the stuffing out of business in 1992. And we had to be very creative to try and build the business back. Number of years later, I opened a hotel called the Cliff House Hotel in, again, April 2008. And the world fell in this bum in September 2008. So we had a rocky start to that opening. And in the current position as general manager of the Cashel Palace Hotel, we obviously had the COVID. We were supposed to open in April 2020, and we had to be delayed for 2 years. And so I've always been involved in openings, but for some reason trouble follows me as well. And but to answer your question, really, I guess having a broad knowledge of every part of the hotel. So I've been involved in, front office, banqueting, food and beverage, sales. I've done quite a few sales trips for hotels over the years, marketing particularly. And if you can get your hands on going through all the areas of the hotel, it gives you a very good grounding in terms of how everyone works together. How the operation of the front office links up with accommodation on a day-to-day basis, and how the food and beverage team link up with the kitchen. And I've always had a very strong relationship with the head chef of each hotel that I've worked in. That's a key role, a key relationship. So I think it's very, very important to establish a very, very good and strong connection with the kitchen, because they obviously drive an element of the standards of food. And so all of my hotels, most of them have all been Relais and Châteaux properties, and they're very, very high and keen on food and beverage offering being have very high standards. So a lot of the hotels I've worked in have all had a Michelin star in the restaurant. So working with people who are very creative and very passionate, and it's sort of just good to make the connections and have the relationships with these people as they're going to be key in supporting you in where you go with the business. And I think the best thing about my current role is that I used all the experiences of my previous 20 years, 25 years of the industry, and I got handed an absolutely, I suppose, a once in a lifetime chance to be involved in the design of the hotel. Literally, the owners were very kind and said, look, when you here's the hotel, there was already a planning application had been approved for a 60-odd bedroom hotel, but there was no real swimming pool or spa, and the way it was all designed didn't look great. So I had the I suppose pleasure of being able to say, yeah, I'll move this and move that. And so along with the architects, working with the architects was fascinating, because we had to make the work as an architectural building, and there was an old building as well, so we were adding new bits to it. So working with the architects and conservation architects as well to make sure things worked properly, and then putting in the practical things like storage and workflows, and how do you get equipment from A, B, and B or service and that. So that was fascinating. Then I had to work with the builders when we were building the property. So I had a hat on meeting the builders every week. That was really interesting. And then you're sort of into interior design, getting the place open with the interior designers, liaising with the owners, obviously, at all times to try and make sure that what we're buying and what we're getting is, to what they're looking for. So you're dealing with ordering all the crockery, cutlery, everything from the teaspoon to the bed, and the whole lot had to be ordered. So that was amazing. And luckily, in fact, I think the 2 years COVID kind of hiatus gave us a lot of time to get a lot of decisions right and spend a lot more time on making things work better. So we were not under a rush, which was a huge, huge benefit, because we could just take our time and make sure that the quality and the standard was right. And a lot of these things take time. For example, the crockery had to go and be glazed and then come back, and it had to be, I suppose, approved by the owners and so forth, and so that all takes time. But anyway, ultimately, I guess you then turn into a hotelier. You have to start hiring your team and getting them trained and getting them all on board. So that was a very interesting task. And then you open the hotel, so and run a hotel as a proper hotel. So you become, after 4 years being a non-hotelier, as I would call it, to turning around to being a hotelier was quite a change of tack, and I had to get used to that. That was quite difficult. I kind of enjoyed not being a hotelier without any guests, I have to say, but I like that whole design side of things. So, but then you realize why you're there, so you have to do the day job. So that was really the most interesting part of this hotel experience.
So one of the questions I'd love to ask you, Adriaan, with all this expertise that you've garnered throughout your journey, it must be a very competitive sector too, because hospitality and tourism, I know you work in sort of these very high level quality establishments, but there's quite a bit of competition at that end, isn't there? And how do you keep current? How do you find out what's working for your guests? How do you build that global community, and how do you attract people to make sure that they visit you? How does that work from a, a senior position within this organization?
That's a very good question. I'll be honest with you, it's a small industry in Ireland in particular. I know all the top GMs in Ireland, we've all worked together. We're a very friendly group. We get on very well. So we're always, there's a bunch of us that meet up every now and then on an informal basis. And we kind of share, our thoughts, and funny enough, we all have very similar problems. And we all think that we don't. But when we start talking to each other, we realize, actually, he doesn't know as much as I know, and I don't know as much as he knows, and so there's a lot of helpfulness between us all, and genuine kind of like, how are you doing, how are you getting on, and what are your problems, and we've whilst we're all competitors, we're trying to sell Ireland first wherever we go. Every hotel in Ireland is going over to America or UK or Europe and saying, come to Ireland, and then after that, we divvy up, if you like, the spoils and go, right, okay. And we're all trying to ultimately, well, from my point of view, we want the customers who come and visit Ireland to have a really great experience. So we're always going to promote places that we think they're going to have a great time in. And if that means saying to somebody staying in Cashel Palace, listen, go up to Ashford Castle and have a great time there, or Dromoland, or, the Marion Hotel in Dublin, Park Hotel in Kenmare, Sheen Falls, these places, we just ring them up and go, listen, there's a bunch of people coming your way. This lovely couple stayed with us. They were having their 30th wedding anniversary. And it's just that little personal introduction that we can make. And I feel great then being able to say to the client, listen, go up there and meet Niall in Ashford, and he'll look after you. And they come and they get a personalized kind of experience. So it's really quite unique in that sense, and so we're always trying to tic-tac off each other from that point of view. Our issue in Cashel really is that we're starting to try and develop an area of Ireland that has never really been hugely touristy. Everyone in Ireland, traditionally, a foreigner coming in will go to Dublin and then go down south to Kerry and up the west to Connemara and Galway and back across to Dublin. Tipperary is kind of a pass-through county, might stop at the Rock of Cashel, which happens to be our back garden, but we're kind of just an afterthought as a coffee stop on the way down to these places. So what we're trying to do is build Cashel and Tipperary as a destination in itself, and educating the customers coming to this area that there are more things to do than just go and visit the Rock of Cashel. So we've got 4 pillars of I suppose, what we call 4 pillars of marketing, or whatever we want to call it, just that we attract people who want to do activities. So we can do, we have a beautiful Blue Way, 22 kilometers along the River Shore. You can cycle or walk along that. It's absolutely stunning, complete hidden gem. There isn't a soul on it. There's some walks around the Galtee Mountains that we all discovered during the lockdown period. Absolutely stunning. They would rival a lot of the Kerry Mountains in their beauty. So there's lots of things for active people to do, canoeing, kayaking, that sort of thing. So we can offer that offer. We are in the thoroughbred country, so equine is huge here. Obviously, we're owned by an equine-based family, Coolmore, who are the prime breeding farm in Ireland and the world, and they're literally 25 minutes away. So people coming here to learn about, who want to learn about thoroughbred racing, or how we train thoroughbreds in Ballydoyle and then bring them to Coolmore where they breed them. We have a very exclusive access to that market for people to see something that they normally wouldn't be able to drive off the street to go and see. So if you want to go riding, we have a fantastic riding stables nearby, Cross Oak. There, you can do any amount of cross country, and it's stunning through the mountains there. So that's riding. There's also the culture, which I mentioned with regard to the Rock of Cashel. You've got all these historical places like Holy Cross, Hoare Abbey, Cahir Castle, where they filmed The Last King or whatever it was with Matt Damon. So there's lots of historic sites. And then finally, we have the food culture. We have a lot of indigenous food producers in Tipperary who come under the umbrella of the Tipperary food producers. network, and we have met all those people in lockdown because we had nothing else to do but go and meet the suppliers and go, listen, what have you got? And we were just astounded by the absolute high quality of the beef, you know, of the dairy products, cheese, you know, honey, things like that. So we're using those people locally to supply us, and we just have a fantastic product, you know. So people can actually go and see, for example, Cashel Blue. They can go and visit the farm there where they see the cows grazing, and then they go and see the factory where they make the cheese, this world famous blue cheese. You know, things like that. Go to the apple farm and see how they make cider. You know, these are simple experiences that are, you're selling an experience to people to say, rather than just, oh yeah, go and tick that box, tick box. So those are the four kind of things that we're trying to say to people. Come here, you're right in the center of the country. Stay here a few days and get to see all these experiences. And if they want to go further afield, Kilkenny is only an hour away, Cork is 1 hour away, Limerick's an hour away. You can visit all these places within one hour drive, and you're back in Cashel, all through motorway network, which is very easy. Dublin is only 2 hours away. You know, we're right in the heart of Ireland, as we say. So we're just trying to sell ourselves. Our USB is the location, really, you know, to say, listen, come here and you don't have to pack every night in a different hotel going around the country and see the country. So that's a bit of that's our challenge, I guess, in trying to push that. And I suppose we want people to come once and then they experience it and they go, yeah, you know what, I'll come back. And we're only open since last March, and we already have people who've been here 3 or 4 times, you know, so that's quite a good sign to see that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Adriaan. It's interesting to see how that sort of both at sort of the network of GMs works together and sort of complement each other almost in showcasing a country. And then, as you say, sort of sharing as that sort of comes into the country, and that sort of close relationship that you have with a lot of those GMs around the country. But also anybody who just takes a look, or, you know, has a little look on the web at Cashel Palace Hotel, we've only got to see the gem that it is. I mean, it truly is magnificent. And the Coolmore name it's synonymous with high quality around the world. For anybody that's in that area at all, that name would certainly ring true. So thank you for bringing that to life. And it's interesting you mentioned, and it kind of leads me on to my next question, that during the lockdown, you sort of met a lot of these local producers and suppliers. But you said earlier something that I want to come back to, and that was, as you were about to open, the pandemic happened and it kind of delayed you by a couple of years. How do you manage that as a GM? Because you kind of glossed over that, but I'd imagine that was a real big challenge for you at the time, because you were kind of all geared up to go, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess, you know, we were lucky in a way. I mean, we have a little gastropub called Mikey Ryan's, which was up and running at the time. And that, I suppose, we did have to stop and close down. And what we were very lucky that we were able to keep the main senior team and keep them busy. And we did things in lockdown. We added a little garden room, and then we did another thing called the Secret Garden, which was an outdoor dining area, which actually worked really well for us, because when we weren't allowed serve people inside, we used it as an outside restaurant, and that worked really well. And then that linked up to Donohue's Bar, which is a bar that we bought very close by, to make it into an Irish bar. So we were doing all these things while we were closed and locked down, and within reason, obviously, when people were allowed travel and stuff. But ultimately, you know, everyone was in the same boat. So we just said, okay, this is what we have. And, you know, we just kept going, and there was still emails flying and still doing Zoom calls. And one of the things I really remember distinctly of that period, which was so helpful, was I had just applied to become a member of Relais and Châteaux. And in those days, they sent out their, just before that we closed down, they sent out the inspector, and she came and looked at us, and and because I had such a history and connection with Relais over the history, and she saw the potential for the hotel. It was still not even a building site at that stage, it was still a rundown hotel. And she said, yeah, we'll approve you, you know, because before Relais used to be, they didn't have a pre-approval or pre-opening membership system, which they had just introduced. Normally you'd have to be open for a year before you could actually become a member. So they approved us. And as luck would have it, when we locked down, Relais started doing a weekly Zoom call around the world where all members could dial in. There was like over 100 people every week zooming in to listen to what was happening, because nobody knew what was going on and all this. And, you know, we were suddenly being included in this discussion with the worldwide community of hoteliers. And I found that kept me going. It gave me a lot of hope and spirit to say, okay, we're getting there. Because, you know, at the time, for example, in Tokyo, they were the first restaurants to open to customers. And we were listening to our Tokyo member explaining how they were serving their guests, you know, and then in Holland, there was a hotel that opened up, and how were they doing room service to rooms? And we were kind of figuring out, it was all so strange, but learning from our colleagues around the world and being in that Zoom, that was probably the best thing that ever happened as becoming a member of Relais, because they really, really combined everyone's talents and knowledge, and everyone was in the same boat. So it kept us going in that period, and that really was quite important for us. And, you know, before you know it, the time passes, and, you know, then it's opening up and you keep going. So we were lucky, and we used the time to kind of redesign certain things and shape the thing. And we were, in fairness, very lucky to be in a position where the owners were not stressing to get us open very fast. You know, they wanted the product right, and they said, take your time and make it as best as possible, and then get it right. And so that was, you know, one of the things, for example, that the gardens had to be completely finished and completely, you know, construction free before we'd even open to the guests, and those small things like that, which normally sometimes other hotels would maybe open and you still kind of got a bit of building work going on. So we were lucky from that point of view. I have to say that was a huge benefit for us. And it did, funny enough, the day we opened was the day that the Irish government lifted the mask mandate. So we didn't even have to wear masks the first day, you know, so with none of that COVID stuff going on, which kind of gave us a bit of hope that there was a bit of there was karma coming. You know, it was the right time to open, and sure, here we are. We don't even remember what a mask is now, you know, a year and a half later. So
that's wonderful, and thank you for sharing that. And it seems that sort of community, really, that global community really came together, didn't it? And sort of because different countries were having different restrictions, different openings, different experiences, you were all learning from each other. That really is the power of, I suppose, working today, where you can connect with people on an international level. But you've mentioned as well that already you've got returning guests, people who've been back to you 2 or 3 times, which is a great testament, because the establishment itself, it's not open that long at this stage in the grand scheme of things. But as you look forward now and you think about the next 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years, how do you plan as the GM of this establishment? Do you think in seasons? Do you think in terms of monthly bookings? Do you think, you know, by 3 years from now, I want this project completed? How does it work from a planning, and what's on your radar perspective, Adriaan?
Yeah, again, a good question. You know, we're still learning how the business is coming in. Like last night, we had 4 rooms book on the day, and what, you know, arrived yesterday completely out of the blue as such. And so and that's something we're just, you know, our systems are kind of taking into account. We've now got a historical basis. So last year's July, we can, you know, compare our figures to. So we use the comparative figures, even though it's the first year, we kind of don't really take much notice, because it was a very, you know, it was really different time. And I suppose, yeah, the next step for us will be to do a budget in September, October for 2024. And we'll have a full solid year of data to go on. And, you know, we're much more in tune with our finance team is very focused now on how we mine our costs, which was something we were finding difficult when we were opening, because there was a lot going on and, you know, invoices flying everywhere. But now we have a daily, weekly handle on staff costs, on purchasing costs. And that's helping us a lot in terms of being able to say, right, this is what we can forecast, and, you know, how the next month will be, how the next quarter will be. So, you know, we have targets on a monthly basis, and we're seeing how we are, you know, how we do against them. And there is a obviously natural businessman desire to improve those figures every year, and that's kind of on the agenda, and that's what we'll hope to see in doing I mean, I get my team to do the budget together, and then we all have to sign off on it together, because we built it together, and then they're fully informed of what they have to do for next year and how we're going to make it. So it's not just kind of foisted on them and said, right, okay, you're going to make this much, and they built the budget, so to speak. So in terms of long-term things, yeah, we would like to eventually probably look at adding some more rooms. So there's a little bit of a discussion going on about that, and that's probably a 4 or 5 year project in the future, which will eventually hopefully come to fruition. But yeah, there's other things happen. we've taken over the running of a little museum in a little village called Feathered. It's a horse country museum. It was failing on a previous couple of years, and we said, like, it was an area where we could send people and have something for our guests to do. So we've kind of taken over the running of that, and there may be a little restaurant in Feathered to add to that we'll kind of dovetail with. So there's little bits and pieces to keep us kind of busy and out of trouble, so to speak. So yeah, you never know, something comes around the corner, and then you get this offer, and you're like, okay, well, let's see and look at this. So we're small and nimble, and we can move fast and make decisions and decide yes or no. But we're very, very lucky. We have people who are very supportive of us, and that's a huge thing. Obviously, we need to be financially successful to do that. But ultimately, if we are, they've given us free rein to really go for it. So I'm very lucky and thankful for that.
Yeah, it sounds very exciting, because for most people, just having the facility where you are would be plenty, but you've mentioned that you've added on a couple of other establishments and now a museum as well, so it keeps expanding. You're building a real community village down there, aren't you? So that's fantastic. What do you love about what you do, Adriaan? And I say that from a position of admiring the work that you do. You've been at the top of the game. You've worked at some of the best establishments this country island has to offer. But you must love it, because what do you love about it today? What keeps you going?
There's two things, really. Firstly, the one thing I do really enjoy is a guest walking away going, that was an amazing experience, that they enjoyed in the hotel, and just seeing them, glow inside after their stay, saying, look, we had a wonderful stay, whatever it might have been, their spa treatment or dinner or the room or just the activity they might have had. So, that gives me a huge amount of pleasure. The other thing is really watching young staff members grow in the industry. I love seeing young kids coming in from particularly hotel school who are interested in this industry, and even without people from out, not in the hotel school, I see kids coming in who've never worked in the industry before, and they suddenly take off and they love it. They decide this is where I'm going to go, and I really like seeing people grow in that, from a young inexperienced kind of person, and then seeing how they go into first year, second year, whatever, and then come back as a manager or whatever, or within our organization, growing within the organization in terms of their own career, moving from one department to another, and then becoming this sort of manager, and to see that gives me a huge amount of pleasure. And then following them once they leave us, because obviously sometimes they need to leave here to go and get their wings as such, to see them grow and work in other hotels and be successful, that gives me a huge amount of pleasure.
Yeah, I like that. That's wonderful. And I suppose finally, before we run out of time, is there anything else you'd like to share with our international audience while we're here today? And secondly, and importantly, Adriaan, if people want to find out more about this wonderful hotel and everything that you're building and working on down there, where's the best place to send them to?
Well, obviously, I'm going to be biased and say Cashel Palace Hotel in Cashel. It's a wonderful country to visit, and funny enough, we're sitting on a damp, wet day, and I'm sure those people who've gone to a sort of sunnier climb and sitting in 45 degrees, you should really come to Ireland and enjoy a nice, warm, wet day instead of a hot, roasting day on the beach. So I think Ireland should really promote itself as this, temperate climate and a beautiful place to come. You won't have any forest fires here or anything like that. So we're missing a trick there, I think, from Fáilte, Ireland. But anyway, definitely come to Cashel and Tipperary, and and visit the people here are fantastic. We're right in the town, and that's what gets everyone. They just turn around the corner. They're on the main street, and there's the entrance of Cashel Palace, and they can't believe it. We're right in the town. So we're sort of half country house, because at the back of the hotel it's overlooking the Rock of Cashel. So you're looking at this beautiful gardens, and it's country house on the side here, and on the front it's this townhouse, and you can literally walk out of town, and 50 yards you're in the main street. You can go to Davern's and buy a nice jacket. There was a man here staying last night. He bought 2 jackets. He never bought a jacket for a long time, and there he is with 2 lovely jackets from Davern's. There's ladies' boutiques, antique shops. There's a couple of pubs. You can go and visit TJ's and Fat Foxes and the City Bar and places like that to have a real experience in an Irish town, which is bustling and has risen with us, and are very pro the hotel. So when you want to just get a taste and a flavor of Ireland. Not every hotel in Ireland has that in terms of at this 5-star level, and they all have their own attractions, obviously. But certainly, this is something that you'll see, which is quite unique to Cashel. So that would be my suggestion.
Well, that's wonderful. And people can check out, obviously, the Cashel Palace Hotel online. They can find out all about it. That's wonderful. Well, look, that brings us nicely to the end of this episode of the Global Discussion. I want to thank Adriaan Bartels for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have Adriaan. And to everybody who's watching or listening to us around the world, please make sure that you follow, like, subscribe to the podcast, do everything you need to do to help us support the shows that we bring you. And I hope that you'll be able to join me back here for more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers like Adriaan. So thank you, Adriaan. It's been such a pleasure to catch up with you again today, my friend.
Thank you, Simon. Very nice to talk to you. Have a great day.